Man, this is crazy, man. Crazy, man.
October 4th, 2021, for immediate release, you're going to create a task force that includes the National Security Division. What on earth does the National Security Division have to do with parents who are expressing disagreements at school boards?
Nothing in this memorandum or any memorandum is
Lying
about
again.
parents expressing disagreements with their school boards. The memorandum makes clear that parents are entitled and protected by the First Amendment to have vigorous debates. We don't, the Justice Department is not interested in that question at all.
Okay, so even in that case, what is the National Security Division, Judge? These are the people that are supposed to be chasing jihadists and Chinese spies. What does the National Security Division have to do with parents at school boards?
This is not, again, about parents at school boards. This is about threats of violence.
Okay, let me turn to that, because you've said that phrase repeatedly throughout the morning. Threats, or violence and threats of violence. Violence and threats of violence. We've heard it a dozen times this morning. As Senator Lee pointed out, the very first line in your October 4th memorandum refers to harassment and intimidation. Why do you continue to dissemble in front of this committee that you are only talking about violence and threats of violence when your memo says harassment and intimidation?
Senator, I said in my testimony that it involved other kinds of criminal conduct.
You're lying.
And I explained to Senator Lee that the statutory definitions of those terms and the constitutional definitions of those terms involve threats of violence.
Okay, let's look at one of those statutes you cited. Section 223. That statute covers the use of not just telephones but telecommunications devices to annoy someone. So are you going to sic your U.S. attorneys and the FBI on a parents group if they post on Facebook something that annoys a school board member, Judge?
The answer to that is no, and the provision that I was particularly drawing to his attention was 2261A, which was to engage in...
I wasn't talking about 2261A. I know you mentioned that. You also mentioned 223. That's what I mentioned.
Yeah, but the only
Judge, you also told Senator Klobuchar that this memorandum was about meetings and coordination.
Yeah.
Meetings and coordination. Yeah. Well, I have in my hand right here that I'll submit to the record a letter from one of your U.S. attorneys to all of the county attorneys, to the attorney general, to all sheriffs, to the school board association of his state, in which he talks about federal investigation and prosecution. Not about meetings, not about coordination, it's about federal investigation and prosecution. Did you direct your U.S. attorneys to issue such a letter?
I did not. I have not seen that letter.
He's lying.
It's got 3 pages. It's got 3 pages of spreadsheet about all the federal crimes that a parent could be charged with, to include the ones you cited. Did Maine Justice make this spreadsheet, Judge?
I don't have any idea. My memorandum speaks specifically about setting up meetings, and I'll just read it again, convene meetings.
Judge, we've all read your memorandum. We've also heard you dissemble about your memorandum. I have, and the record now shows, one of your U.S. attorneys sending out a letter about federal prosecution investigation and list in detail the federal statutes for which you could be prosecuted. Judge, you talked a lot about intimidation and harassment. Have you issued a memorandum like your October 4th memorandum about Black Lives Matter riots from last summer?
You're talking about the summer of 2020? In the summer of 2020, there
were a lot of crimes committed. People haven't been.
There were a lot of prosecutions, and they were under the previous administration.
Okay, Judge, what about this? It is no doubt you're even though parents at school boards aren't within federal jurisdiction, there's no doubt that federal officials are. You keep saying senators. Have you started an investigation into the harassment of Senator Kyrsten Sinema in a bathroom because she won't go along with the Democratic Party's big tax and spend agenda? That is a sitting United States senator being harassed in a bathroom.
I don't know whether the senator has referred the matter to the Justice Department or not.
Now here's my man Ted Cruz going in on his head with his bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Ted Cruz gonna about to go in on his head, and we're gonna see how Anthony Fauci. Now, this man's supposed to be in charge of the Homeland Security with Mayorkas. They're supposed to combine together, the DOJ, so on, the FBI, the CIA. Now, what we're seeing here is, and another excuse he uses, saying that This happened under a other former administration, which is straight bullshit. Which is straight bullshit. You should not have to say something like that. You know what I'm saying? You should not have to say that you go. This was a prior administration. So what that tells us, if he uses that excuse, is that even though Trump was the president of the United States overseeing all these things, they were moving outside of him and him while he was busy concentrating on a re-election or in office at the time, what trying to defend himself as far as what we saw was going on in 2020 with this coronavirus being thrown on his shoulder and all types of other shit from Anti-Folk Party and these philanthropists and rich motherfuckers up in our government doing bullshit. He was fighting all this different stuff with the deep state and all kinds of shit, trying to oversee everything. And look what happened. They was moving completely outside around Trump, not coming to Trump, not giving Trump probably knowing what's going on in himself. They were moving completely rogue. You know what I'm saying? While he was in office, so they could say that it was a prior administration. But no, it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Because Merrick Garland was in office and was supposed to be doing his job. You know what I'm saying?
Times have compared parents who show up at school board meetings, like Mr. Smith here, have compared them to criminal rioters. You think that's right? You think that a parent who shows up at a school board meeting, who has a complaint, who wants to voice that complaint, and maybe she doesn't use exactly the right grammar, you think they're akin to criminal rioters? Do you agree with that?
I do not, and I do not remember any senator here making that comparison.
Oh, really? These people are just like the folks who came here on January 6th and the riot at the Capitol?
I don't think they were referring to the picture that you're showing there.
Well, I certainly would hope not, but they were referring to parents who go to school board meetings. Mr. Smith is a parent who went to a school board meeting. I'll leave it at this, General Garland. You have weaponized the FBI and the Department of Justice. Your U.S. attorneys are now collecting and cataloging all the ways that they might prosecute parents like Mr. Smith because they want to be involved in their children's education and they want to have a say in their elected officials. It's wrong. It is unprecedented, to my knowledge, in the history of this country. And I call on you to resign. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cruz.
This is Ted Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 8 years under Barack Obama, the Department of Justice was politicized and weaponized.
Ouch! Ouch! Did we just hear that name? Ouch! Now, did we hear that name or didn't we hear that name? Ooh, 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 ooh. Now, what I want you to watch here is the connection. We got to look at the connection of the players in the field. Just like I told you before, watch the medical field. What do you think I was talking about? The CDC, the World Health. Those are the big ones that is the rulers over, that the creep Joe Biden and the different Bill Gates and all them the philanthropists and all them is mixing in that pot of witches brew, or the CDC, Health World Organization, and all these different Arab boy up there in the fucking pictures telling us about what's going on and so forth and what he gonna do and this and that and that. And you know what I'm saying? And got an Arab boy. And then they got a Chinese up in the box. Remember them 3 boxes they kept showing you during coronavirus? You know what I'm saying? You got an Arab boy. And then you got a ching dong thing up in there. And I'm telling us about this and that and telling us about that. You know what I'm saying? And then we look at, even when it comes down to Como saying Riverhead, New York was a red zone, and then you got a Ching Chong over there running shit, administering through her little computer who to suck it to me too and suck it to me now. You know what I'm saying? And all that bullshit they saw and think that they were fooling somebody with that piece of shit garbage as well. And then sitting up there and the local, so there's a lot of people that were working in the hospitals that we have to investigate, that were in there, nurses, doctors, all of them put together in the witch's brew and the pot, you know what I'm saying, in your local hospitals right here on Long Island and all over America as a whole, that this thing has carried through too. So we have to look at those people too. While they were busy having that field day up on stage being glorified and singing and getting a music video and all this different stuff up there on the American awards for nurses and shit, they were involved in the garbage as well. Because they the ones have to do what? Administer. So let's get back to creepy ass Mary Garland.
You came before this committee in your confirmation hearing. You promised things would be different. I asked you specifically, quote, will you commit to this committee that under your leadership, the Department of Justice will not target the political opponents of this administration? Here was your answer, quote, absolutely. It's totally inappropriate for the department to target any individual because of their politics or their position in a campaign. That was your promise just a few months ago. I'm sorry to say you have broken that promise. There is a difference between law and politics. And General Garland, you know the difference between law and politics.
That's right. You ain't ignorant.
Law is based on facts. It is impartial. It is not used as a tool of political retribution. This memo was not law. This memo was politics. On Wednesday, September 29th, the National School Board Association wrote a letter to the president asking the president to use the Department of Justice to target parents that were upset at critical race theory, that were upset at mask mandates in schools, to target them as domestic terrorists.
Woo!
On the face of the letter was in repeated consultation with the White House, an explicit political consultation with the White House. That was on Wednesday, September 29th. 5 days later, on Monday, so right after the weekend, boom, you pop out a memo, giving them exactly what they want. Now, by the way, I understand that. In politics, that happens all the time. An important special interest wants something. Sir, yes, sir. We're going to listen to them. Let me ask you something, General Garland. In the letter, which you told the House of Representatives was the basis for this.
Politics over life. So life don't mean shit only when it comes to the fact of you want them involved in it to make it look good, to brainwash their ass. You know what I'm saying? And also, I guess, to go down the voting poll trickery garbage as well. That's to keep the people believing that something good is being done. You know what I'm saying? In the name of your vote electing the bees. So, we see where Merrick the Nutcase Garland is just another one, because he put out the memo when the creep Joe Biden administration sent it down the pipeline and told him to do that, to put the Gestapo move. See how they're using our government to be able to Gestapo your ass, like in Germany, just before the war and just before rounding people up and putting them in concentration camp. The shit they did in Africa to the African people and all people across the planet Earth as a whole, as they stomp their fucking beastly fucking move across the planet, and have been doing this shit for years. Let's continue.
This abusive memo targeting parents. How many incidents are cited in that memo?
I have to look back through the memo.
Okay, you don't know. How many of them were violent?
Again, the general report.
How many of them were violent? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know. And there's a reason you don't know. Because you didn't care, and nobody in your office cared to find out. I did a quick count just sitting here. During this hearing, I counted 20 incidents cited. Of the 20, 15 on their face are nonviolent. They involve things like insults. They involve a Nazi salute. That's one of the examples. My God, a parent did a Nazi salute at a school board because he thought the policies were oppressive. General Garland is doing a Nazi salute as an elected official. Is that protected by the First Amendment?
Yes, it is.
Okay. 15 of the 20 on the face of it are not violent. They're not threats of violence. They're parents who are unhappy. Yet, miraculously, when you write a memo, the opening line of your memo, in recent months, there has been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence. You know what? You didn't look, and nobody on your staff looked. Did you even look up the 20 instances?
As I testified the decision to make, send a memo is for an assessment.
Did you look up the 20 instances?
I did not read.
Did anyone on your staff look them up?
I don't know the answer, but it's not
but of course you don't. In general, there's a reason. Look, you started your career as a law clerk to Justice Brennan. You've had many law clerks during the year, during your time as a judge. I was a clerk to Chief Justice Rehnquist. I'll tell you what, if I drafted an opinion for the Chief Justice and walked in and it said, there's a disturbing pattern of violence. Well, Ted, how do you know that? Well, I got an amicus brief here who claims it. You would fire a law clerk who did that. You're the Attorney General of the United States. This was not a tweet you sent. This is a memo to the Federal Bureau of Investigations saying, go investigate parents as domestic terrorists.
That is not what the memo says at all.
Is it what the letter says?
That is not what.
Is it what the letter says?
I don't care what the letter says.
Oh my God! Sound like Biden.
You testified under oath.
Sound like Biden and Bush.
The letter was the basis.
I'm the president, so what you gonna do about it?
The letter and public reports of violence and violence. My memo says nothing about domestic terrorism.
He's lying.
Says nothing about parents committing any such thing.
Gestapo.
My memo is an attempt at an assessment of whether there is a problem out there that the federal government needs to resolve.
The letter on its face says the actions of the parents could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism.
And that is wrong.
And asks the president to use the Patriot Act in regards to domestic terrorism directed at parents. This was the basis of your memo.
My memo.
The Department of Justice, when you're directing the FBI to engage in law enforcement, you're not behaving as a political operative because a political ally of the president says, hey, go attack these parents because we don't like what they're saying. Department of Justice, you did no independent research on what was happening, did you?
The memo has nothing to do with parts.
Did you do independent research?
The memo has.
Did you do independent research?
The memo has nothing to do.
Okay, you're not answering that question.
Lying ass.
You've testified you know nothing about the violent sexual assault that happened in Loudoun County, even though it's one of the bases in this letter.
I read about it since then.
Okay. You told the House last week you knew nothing about it.
Did not know at the time. No.
Okay. This week, the court concluded that a 14-year-old girl was violently raped by a boy wearing a skirt in the girls' restroom. The school district covered it up, released the boy, sent him to another school where he violently raped another girl. The father, who Mr. Hawley just showed you, was the father of the first girl. He was
to keep the LGBTQ thing going and us not to know what they're doing in the Luciferian Baphomet, Sodom and Gomorrah, swine, naked, rubbing and swining and stinking and swarming together. You know what I'm saying? Pile on top of each other by the millions, type of mind frame world that they want to take us into. This is the bullshit that he says. Okay.
Understandably, do you understand why a parent would be upset when your daughter is raped at school, the school board covers it up, and then lies to you and claims there have been no assaults, we have no instances of assaults in our bathroom, and that was a flat-out lie, as the court concluded this week. Do you understand why the parent would be upset?
Absolutely, and any expressions of upset are completely protected by the First Amendment.
Except you just called him a domestic terrorist.
I never called him that. That's not
correct. This letter calls him a domestic terrorist. You based a direction to the FBI, an official direction from the Attorney General, on this letter, and I'll tell you what, the NSBA is so embarrassed of this letter, they've apologized for it and retracted it, but you don't apparently have the same willingness to apologize and retract what you did. Let me ask you something else. A big part of this letter is that they're upset about parents not wanting critical race theory taught. Your son-in-law makes...
Merrick Garland ain't no more than a creep Joe Biden, flunky, stooly, shady, deep state having take us into the Baphomet, Luciferian, LGBTQ world, and sitting up there was going along all along with the whole shit. The reason why they released the boy, you know what I'm saying, after he raped the first girl going into the bathroom with a skirt, dressed as a girl with a skirt, violently raped her, And the reason why they cover that up, because this is what they want to happen. This is exactly what they want them to be able to do. All of us going into the same bathroom, you know what I'm saying? Hundreds of regular men going to the same bathroom with women raping them, seeing their big asses and or whatever they want, and sexually raping them, and then leaving out the bathroom like nothing happened, and everybody in there having a weird of a Luciferian Sodom and Gomorrah time. Now, when it comes to LGBTQ, you know what I'm saying, you to talk that shit all you want to, but you ain't fooling the great point blank. You are Luciferian at your heart, and you will sign that contract because you are the same set of group of LGBTQ suckers who put Barack nutcase ass Obama in office and so forth and on. You forced it. You made all the magazines and the flyers, and that woman talked about she was a fighter in the magazines, and now she's going to God and all that. You know, I saw that a long time ago, but she was also a part of facilitating up to what we see now.
A very substantial sum of money from a company involved in the teaching of critical race theory.
His son, Merrick Garland.
Did you seek and receive a decision from an ethics advisor at the Department of Justice before you carried out an action that would have a predictable financial benefit to your son-in-law?
This memorandum is aimed at violence and threats.
I just asked a question. Did you seek an ethics?
It has no predictable.
Did you seek an ethics opinion?
It has no.
Did you seek an ethics opinion, Judge? You know how to ask questions and answer them. Did you seek an ethics opinion?
You asked me whether I sought an ethics opinion about something that would have a predictable effect on something. This has no predictable effect in the way that you're talking about.
So, if critical race theory is taught in more schools, does your son-in-law make more money?
This memo has nothing.
If critical race theory is taught in more schools, does your son-in-law make more money? Yes or no?
This memorandum has nothing to do with critical race.
Will you answer if you sought an ethics
kind of curriculum?
Merrick Garland wordplay.
I'm answering the best I can.
Yes or no? Did you seek an ethics opinion?
Wordplay.
Memorandum has
Did you seek an ethics opinion?
This memorandum has nothing to do with.
General, are you refusing to answer if you sought an ethics opinion?
I'm telling you that there's no possible.
So you're saying no. Just answer it directly. You know how to answer a question directly. Did you seek an ethics opinion?
I'm telling you that if there was any reason to believe there was a conflict of interest, I would do that. But I cannot.
Why do you refuse to answer the question? Why won't you just say no?
I'm sorry.
You're not going to answer the question?
I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
Did you seek an ethics opinion?
I'm saying again, I would seek an ethics opinion.
So no is the answer, correct?
Senator, your time is up.
Let the record reflect the Attorney General refuses to answer whether he sought an ethics opinion, and apparently ethics are not a terribly high priority in the Biden Justice Department.
I don't think that's a fair reflection of what I said.
Then answer the question.
You see that shit? Merrick Garland dancing like a motherfucker. This is what I'm talking about, and people need to pay more close attention to. You know what I'm saying? We cannot just let them come out and say words out their mouth, just like they said, asystematic, be systematic. And good, healthy people is spreading the virus. You know what I'm saying? And so on and so on. How did that make any damn sense? And people that creep Joe Biden and them say stuff out their mouth all day long, going right along with it, like he can do no wrong, or they see no wrong in what he does, or what he have done to our country, talking about democracy, and all that bullshit. As you can see, Barack Obama was a part of it. What did he do good for our country? Nothing but facilitate the same bullshit we see today. Matter of fact, many people died on his watch. Same with Hillary Clinton trying to run for office, talking about she, you know, saying, what was she, secretary or whatever bullshit she needed to. These Biden, Kamala, we only Kamala alone for now. Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bush, his father, and all the rest before them in the Demon Democratical group. All of them is in the same group of the fraternal order of doing bullshit to our country based on their Luciferian affiliation and deep state garbage that they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Now watch as, you know what I'm saying, Ted Cruz, you know what I'm saying, expose this situation that we were looking at before. Well, matter of fact, let's look at that one. Let's look at that one. and watch Ted Cruz go to work on it. You know what I'm saying? Me and Ted Cruz don't always agree on everything. You know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying? You got to agree with Ted Cruz on a great vast things that is going on.
Tory changes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Ossoff. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, every day when I'm home in Texas, I hear from Texans who are deeply dismayed about the growing politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. If you are not, every one of you should be deeply concerned about the damage being done to the integrity of the institutions in which you operate. My office hears regularly from FBI agents and from assistant U.S. attorneys who are likewise concerned about the politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and this is profoundly damaging to the rule of law in our nation.
That's right.
Last month, a whistleblower brought to light the existence in the FBI of a report, an FD 1023, in which the informant alleges that President Biden and his family members engaged in a $5 million bribery scheme during his time as vice president.
But sending 4.3 trillion, probably billion, over to Ukraine of your taxpayers' dollars, raising the inflation by consistently spending, funding these wars and blowing the debt ceiling wide open, while Jesse Jackson was talking about bringing down the filibuster so they could change the voting laws and bringing all kind of migrants and different people to outvote the American people, and many of the bills that would be argued and watered down to the filibuster, which is arguing the bill and it stays stalemate until further notice. You know, say Jesse Jackson was out there trying to bring that down. Imagine that. Something that the people need when it comes to laws that be, because without the filibuster, there would be no argument. This is why Joe Biden put the black ass nigger out there to try to rally the people to bring the filibuster down. Now we know why. Because they wanted to pass straight through Congress, fuck everybody else. We're going to slam them and thank you, ma'am, your ass. You shut the fuck up, go home, and just wait for the nuclear bomb to hit. You know what I'm saying? While we juice it all up, grease it all up, and get the wheel going. You know what I'm saying?
Deputy Director Abadi, is it true that the FBI has a report making those allegations?
I'm not going to comment on that, Senator.
And why is that?
I'm just not going to comment on information we received, investigations.
Do you owe an obligation to the American people to be candid about evidence of corruption by the President of the United States?
Ted Cruz stuck his ass. Ted Cruz stuck that ass till that nigga got quiet. He got quiet. Because this is what they all did. They facilitated garbage into our situation.